All right, so let's get into it. Well, one thing off the top, Zip, make sure you link that art station like and in your contact info or something as like one of your websites, because I have to like expand your description and then like highlight your link and paste it. Like it's too many steps. The developers are too lazy and too busy. They'll not want to take those steps. So that's just the first thing. Cool guys. So this is Zip De Long from Omaha, you know, Nebraska. Any I know my states, I think. And yeah, I like this little guy. The only thing here is that, he doesn't have a face, so people are going to see that and like, yeah, whatever. This is more of a, even though it's a character, it's like hard surface modeling. They're going to consider that. So for the details here, it actually might be a little too over the top. You just need some. It feels like even. The details feel even. Like you need some patches that feel kind of smooth, and then patches where it's rough, and then so it doesn't feel like a even roughness across the whole thing, if that makes any sense. Especially if this is supposed to be glassier, which I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's supposed to be, but that's something I noticed right away. But overall, you're starting out with this piece. This is a decent piece. It looks nice and corroded, and he's fun. Reminds me of BioShock, which is one of my favorite games. I never beat it, but it was definitely cool. So I wanted to get into this one. I saw this one here. I know you call out what you did for like the light. I guess you should say that, like, say you did lighting only or texture only, because then people think like you're trying to pass something off as yours. If you don't tell them if if the textures are yours or not. I would try to get all the text. If you are a texture artist, like they're gonna kind of hold that against you. If you don't have if all those textures aren't yours, they're gonna kind of hold that against you, even if you mention it. So I would try to like revamp this thing, like make just maybe even like just totally different materials, or like, just something that looks totally different. Just say like, hey, this is what I did with this model. Because it's not your model, and that's okay if it's not your model. But if you're a texture artist and lighting artist, they want you to be really good at materials and really know your shit, basically. And I'm trying to think of like the best way to do it, because they're gonna want to see things in real time and not just rendered out like this. Yeah, you're gonna want to mention like if you baked lighting, and I would get into post-process effects as well, because those will completely transform the way things look. Like get some, some God rays coming in, like from the window shot, like sun coming in, like especially here on this guy. Yeah, it is. On this light coming in. Oh man, just bam. God, or is that light? No, that's just a fluorescent light. Never mind. So I would actually make that a sunroof and do the God rays. So just do that because it would look cool. And just do whatever you can to make it look cool. Like, because this up front, like this, I could say this piece, it's it's like, hey, this is somebody learning. Like that's what this looks like, and that's fine. I don't know if I would pass it off as a like portfolio piece. You might have to do something like more transformative with it. Like I was saying, like the textures and like make it so there's like maybe it's like run down and there's moss growing on it and like stuff like that. And so we got, even though in the desert I don't think there's moss, so maybe don't do that. But something that'll work. And same thing here. This is kind of you can tell that it's kind of like the Unreal's like. The thing that bugged me really badly when I saw this at first was this just repeating texture. It's kind of like shifted here and there, but you can totally see the repeating textures are always a no-no. And especially again, if you're going to be a texture artist, your textures are going to be scrutinized, even if they're not yours. Like anything that's showing on the screen is going to be scrutinized if it's a texture. So what I would do here is just make these details smaller, and then get big you could do decals in Unreal, just like project decals, very large decals to kind of hide the repeating decals. And also you could, in the material itself, you could try to like make a layer, different layers that are one's bigger, one's smaller. You can do that inside the material. yeah, so I wouldn't even. It's funny. I wouldn't even show the source material here. I know you did like before and after, just like just cut it. Just show what you made. That's it. Like show your work should be able to stand on its own. And don't confuse people. Like at first, I was kind of confused. Like, oh, is this? Oh, yeah, you made this better, so I could see. But I think it's kind of subjective whether it's better or not. It's different. So you don't want to kind of allude to, like saying, I made this better, because then someone might think, oh, I liked the other one better. I liked this one better because of the reflections on the ground or whatever, even though it's still there. But um, yeah, you just don't want to give anybody something to compare your stuff to. Just say like, hey, this is my stuff. I guess this is kind of the same thing with the other guy. Like, just get those details nice and fine, like very small. Compared, like, because right here it just seems like it's too chunky and big. You can see it from too far away. That's a problem that a lot of beginning artists have, is that they just make all the details so big. Like, so you can. I mean, if you just go to like a subway station or something. I don't know if there's a subway station near you. Look up references of like cities, just tons of cities, and like look all like concrete and all that, and you'll see that a lot of it is smooth, and then there's like little chunks and details and roughness and stuff here and there, but it's not like the whole thing. This donut, I believe. Oh no, it looks like you changed a little bit. There is a tutorial. I know, like the donut tutorial for Blender. Um, so people might mistake it for like the tutorial donut. So make sure that if you're going to have a donut like that that's very iconic, that you do something different with it. Make it like super realistic. Like put it in like a setting that it looks like it blends in with like a photograph or something. Something where you're trying to do something a little bit different with it. If I were to do this scene myself, if I was making my demo reel, I would actually start out with the final shot, like right away, because what will happen is an employer will see the first part and they'll say like, oh, they're showing you V's. They don't know, they might be kind of a noob. I'm going to skip over this one. And then that's your chance. Like, that they give you a few seconds, and they went on to the next one before they even saw your shot. So I would just start out with the final shot, and then basically I would work backwards from what you have here. I wouldn't even show this texture thing either, actually. I mean, just show the final shot and then show like they do, like some people, they'll transition to the wireframe from their final shot just for a few seconds, and then they'll transition back to the final shot look, like while it's just panning. I would just do that and just have this be a few seconds long. Like, I mean, you can make it a really slow pan if you want, so it still takes up like 20 seconds. What I would like to see here, if I'm an employer, I want to see this brick applied to something in an environment somewhere, because it looks all right by itself. Let me see if I didn't even play this. Maybe you do show it. It looks cool. I can see that. But yeah, I'd like to see it applied on something, like a nice little chimney. Just like show like a super close up of like a roof with a chimney with that on it. It would be pretty cool. So I noticed that you have some close ups here. I don't know how I feel about the close ups, because the scene wasn't meant for the close up of the mushrooms. No, they're all right. I feel like there just needs the grass. Something about the grass, the spaghetti grass, bothers. It needs another element of grass with it. Like, you can leave the grass how it is there, but like add another set of planes in there to like kind of fill it out more, because you can see where the grass comes out and you can see the grass texture on the ground. You want that to kind of be an illusion. Like, you want to make sure that the grass blades coming out and the grass texture on the ground kind of match, so it just seems like this nice full grass. And I'll get some more atmosphere maybe in it. Like, the picture in the background doesn't quite match, but what I would do is just kind of have it get some atmosphere in it, so that it's kind of faded into the atmosphere anyway. It's like a fogginess anyway, so it just kind of brings the scene forward closer to you a little bit better. Yes, I like to go into the recruiting process, because it's very important to think how the employers are going to be thinking. Like, put the best stuff up front, always, always, always. Don't just wait to like, I'm going to surprise them at the end with my best stuff. Like, no, just put it right at the front, so you don't get passed over. And don't put filler in there just for the sake of filler, because it will get you passed over. And just only good work, or what you deem good work. Don't try to spread yourself too thin is another one. Like, don't just throw in some random skill that you're not quite good at yet. Like, hey, I know how to do an effect, and you put an effect in there and it looks terrible. Like, don't do that, because that'll get you skipped over. Like, there's a lot of stuff. This will be the last one. So this one's cool. I like the ears are fun. The ears might be a little bit too exaggerated, just because I don't know. I feel like if something's tugging on the ear like that, it might be kind of like closer together. It's kind of like a wide loop right now, and it just feels like maybe make it not quite so stretched down. And as far as the skin, so I'm not like the best person to like really go into like how you exactly sculpt a human head and texture it and everything. But the hair, there's something about the hair and the skin that doesn't feel quite right. Kind of feels like fur. I think it just needs more a specular on it, anisotropic specular on the hair that might fix that a little bit. There's something up with the pores on the skin. It might be the same problem that you've actually been having for a lot of these things, where it feels like there's this generic, like repeating texture over the whole face. Like, just it's there. It's not like really standing out at you, but it's just enough there where like you can feel it. Like, there just needs to be spots where you don't see it. Like underneath your eyebrows, probably shouldn't be seeing a whole ton of pores and stuff like that. Like, just make sure the pores only show up in spots where you really would see the pores a lot. And you're just picking and choosing where to have you don't need to have details everywhere. Just pick and choose where to really have the details. Off the bat, I can say that you can probably just, I know it's nice to have like a welcome message and everything, but again, these employers, they don't have time. Nobody has time in this industry. And they might not get to your portfolio. I would just have like your gallery right up front, just like ArtStation. I mean, if you want, you can just do ArtStation. You don't have to have your own website unless you really want to. If you're not a web designer, which I'm not, even though I do have my own website, I use Wix for mine. But besides the point, if you don't want people to be thinking about your website. You just want people to think about your work. But yeah, so what I would do is just ask the whole like welcome message. I mean, you can have it. Maybe you can have it in smaller font, and then have your gallery below it. You can do something like that. That'll probably be fine. But I like to just get people to your work as fast as possible. I'll be honest in saying that you do have a lot of work to do to get to the level you need to be. But I mean, you're taking the right steps to get there, obviously. And I don't know what kind of schooling you've had already or anything, but I can see that you have a lot of different things going on and like what you want to do. You probably did the effects and everything, so that's cool. We'll go to the next one. I'll just get through these just to show them. Like right now, I mean, you can consider this a portfolio, and that's totally fine. I don't think this work will be able to get you a job yet. Oh yeah, another thing, getting these thumbnails on these would be helpful, just so it has a nice thumbnail of like what is going to happen. It's not just a black box. That helps people see that thumbnail. It's more helpful than you think for some reason. I don't know why. I'm sorry. You definitely need like a little blurb on these things. Like, I would have like a page dedicated just to like this assignment, like what this was and what you did. And then the next one, what it was and what you did, because it's hard to tell from the screenshots what's going on. Yeah, so we got a little bit of design going, character exploration going on. Senior project. Okay, there we go. Senior project. Oh, okay. This is a download. Oh, it's Mac. I should not download Mac. I'm not on a Mac. Error. Oh, that's not good. Oh, it won't let me open it. That's a good thing. So extract first. No, it's not. Wow. Okay. Well, that's a good thing I tested that for you. You'll definitely need to have like a little page for each one of these projects that tells exactly what you worked on, what the project was, what was happening, what you worked on. There's a lot of different things here. So what I would do if you want to be successful and then really do what you want to do, the first thing you got to do is ask yourself, like, what do I like the most? And at first you might just be like, oh, I like everything. um, Level designer, okay. I wanted to be a game designer for a long time, and I ended up falling into animation, um, because I saw that as the closest thing to game design. There was no game design degrees. I mean, they were just kind of starting. Right? It wasn't really a viable path to getting a job, so I went into animation, and animation was like the closest thing to affecting game design that I could find, and I just ended up sticking with it and liking it a lot because I ended up seeing that designers. I didn't like the balancing and economies and all that kind of stuff as much as just making cool stuff. So that's kind of why, like, I could be a narrative designer and like make something like Uncharted or whatever, but um, those designers, it's very hard to stay in work when you don't do like the economy balancing type, like numbers fiddling stuff with design, which I hate. So what I would do first, I would target your portfolio around. I wouldn't even bother with, you know, trying to like show animations and showing these cool videos of stuff and effects. I wouldn't even bother with that. If you want to be a game designer, level designer, I would just show game design or level design. Like, just focus on that. And I would go to the Unity store, the asset store, buy a bunch of assets, start throwing stuff together. Nobody cares if you made the stuff or not. If you're a designer, it doesn't matter if you made, as long as you point out like, hey, I'm using assets. I'm a designer. They're going to be fine with that. Even if you use gray boxes, they're fine. But I try to personally. I try when I put together my reels and everything. I always, people say like the presentation doesn't matter that much. Like, these are professionals or whatever. They'll look past it. They will. But you still got to put some effort into the presentation to make yourself stand out. So I would just download, like, it's not that hard just to download some models and things like that to throw together, some model packs so that they all feel like they belong in the same universe. Start building levels, start designing games, and start building levels for games that exist already. Say, levels that people can try out. Be like, hey, I made this whatever level for Unreal, or whatever game you can find that they allow you to release levels for. A game that you like, preferably, and like it can be a level that changes the way fundamentally changes the way that game works. It can be a mod. A lot of people get started with mods, but you have to get a team together for that, and that's a huge endeavor. But you can do that, with mods. Game design is a hard one to break in with. I'll be honest, it is very hard, just because a game designer affects the production of the whole thing. Like, the design that you put together. If all of a sudden you decide like, hey, I need like an hour of cinematics because it's gonna be a story-driven experience. Someone's gonna be like, hey, hold up, we don't have the millions and millions of dollars it costs for that. You're gonna have to change your design so that it doesn't require lots of like cinematics, and stuff like that. Because honestly, if your game needs all that stuff, if it's not good without it, then it's not good design. So you have to be able to design around that stuff anyways. That's why, like, I know people like to post stories and stuff, and stories they've written, all the background on the characters and everything, which is fine, it's good. But what companies are really looking for is somebody that can make the systems, that design the systems that drive the compulsion, that makes them lots of money, essentially, which is unfortunate. But that's kind of what they're for most designers. They're looking for somebody that knows how to kind of keep people going forward and coming back, and in interesting ways, and making products that people love and get attached to, but not necessarily on because they can find a ton of people that can do background story and all that kind of stuff. For a game designer, they're really kind of just looking for somebody that knows how to put the actual game together, the actual gameplay, the moment to moment, all that stuff. I mean, there's different kinds of designers too, so don't get that wrong. Austin, if you want to be a designer, so first thing, get really good at game engines, because there's this old guard of designers that don't really know how to use game engines. And I can tell you from experience of working with some old guard game designers, it is absolute hell because they have no idea how the engines work and they can't help you. And they're just coming up with all this stupid crap that doesn't make any sense, that is like really hard to put together sometimes. So if you know game engines, especially Unreal, Unity too, if you know scripting, so designers a lot of times have to have two skills, which is unfair, but it just has to happen usually. You have to be good at designing, but then something else, like can you design and also do some scripting so you can like script up these little prototypes. Scripting up prototypes is a huge asset, like saying like, hey, I know how things are built in this engine. I know that I know how to gray box. So get used to that term, gray boxing, for a designer. That's essentially getting a level all working with just gray boxes, all over. You're putting everything in the right spot. You're kind of shifting things around, making sure everything is the right size. And after you do that, it goes immediately to the programmers and artists, and they start building stuff. So if you're really good at gray boxing, that helps out, because then you can keep on designing, or you can move on to something else or whatever, and you're not blocking everybody. And that's a really important, aspect of being a designer, is just that. So I think if you're starting out as a designer now, you have to know the game engines, especially since they're free. Most of them are free now, so it's actually a good thing. I wouldn't get worried about it, because you're not going to have to drop any money to get this on. These are really powerful engines, and they have all these tools and everything, and they're just free, which is pretty cool. How Unity basically started that, and Epic took a very long time to catch on that all the schools were teaching Unity because it was free, and they're like, wait a minute, everybody's teaching Unity. All these graduates know Unity. They're going to become professionals that know Unity. We need to stop this. So Unreal went free after a certain amount of time as well, and then they're all free now. It's just like, hey, you get a game engine, you get a game engine. Everybody gets game engines. But they didn't used to. They used to be tens of thousands of dollars to get a game engine. So feel very lucky nowadays that they're all free. I don't know if you use Blender. I haven't been using it very much, but I've tested it out and I really like it. It's free as well. And I see a lot of schools, a lot of people catching on to Blender, and I really hope that it keeps going, because I'm honestly tired of Maya a little bit. And I don't know if Maya is actually any better than Blender, and it costs way more. So Maya is only better for me because I know it. I've been using it for 10 years. But if you want to use Blender, that's a perfectly fine tool. As well, to make your models if you need models and stuff like that. But I just get really involved in all those engines, especially if that's what you're passionate about. I wouldn't waste your time trying to learn how to model things realistically or animate really well or do effects and video production. Like, it's just you're gonna get overwhelmed. It's too much. Like, just focus on, like I said, getting into the game engine and making prototypes. And that's what I did in high school. That's how I started. I used Game Maker, good old Game Maker, when it was before it was owned by whatever company it's owned by now. It cost $10, and it was awesome. You could just make games, and it was a lot like Unreal is now, because it was using visual scripting language, which is why I loved it, because I'm a very visual person. I like coding, but I don't like the syntax of coding, and it hurts my brain. It drains me. I can't do it. I forget every time I sit down and try to code something. I forget how it works. Like, I can't do it. So I love Unreal for the visual scripting blueprints. They're called blueprints. They're just nodes that you connect together that make code, essentially. Any coder would tell you that it makes terrible code, but I don't care, because I can get stuff to work just fine with it. So, and actually some coders like it, because the thing is, when I want something to look cool, I don't have to go over to a programmer and tap him on the shoulder and say like, hey, could you stop what you're doing? Because my cool animation isn't playing cool enough, and they'll roll their eyes and they'll just go back to what they were doing. Like, hey, I'm making this game work for millions of people. I need to work on this network code, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I really like the scripting stuff. Even in Unity, even it doesn't have visual scripting yet, but just being able to script things as an artist, as a designer, you don't have to bog all the programmers down with all these stupid little needy asks that they don't like to do. Man, I've gone like literally months and months on a production of this thing that was just bothering me so much, and I wanted to fix it so bad, but everyone was so focused on all of a sudden like making the game just run. So yeah, I was very happy once I got into like being able to go into a game engine and help fix that stuff myself. So masters, I mean, it depends on your learning style. Masters, I would advise against getting a masters. It will, with employers, it will not help you at all. They won't care about masters. They will only care about your work. That's all they're going to care about. And bachelor's is fine. It's because honestly, the first year of the industry, you will learn more than an entire master's degree. The first year in the industry, you will learn probably more than almost all of your schooling before that. Like, it's a lot. It's a fire hydrant of information. I know it takes a lot to even get there to begin with. So yeah, I feel I've been in here, in the industry 10 years, and I'm still feel like I'm just like constantly learning every day. And, it's exhausting after a while. It honestly is. Because like sometimes you're just like, man, I just want to have fun. Like, that's what I came here for. And you can't always do that. It's, sometimes it's a business. The reason why I'm doing this is that I went through school. I did it the way you're supposed to do it. And 10 years later, I'm still paying for those loans. It's a lot. And I know many, many people that just never went into the field because it's so hard, and they just have tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and it's all racking up. And this is one of those careers where like you could go into it dead set on it. Like, this is what you want to do. And then you get in there and you're like, holy crap, this is not what I want to do. But it's already too late. And that's what happens a lot of times. And it sucks. But, that's kind of why I started this. For the last 4 years or so, I've been thinking about doing some sort of teaching online, but I never have the time. I never have the money. Patreon, I kind of last year kind of found, and I was like, maybe I should use this and try this out. And I've been trying it, and I'm getting things rolling. But if you're not a web designer, don't be a web designer. It's totally fine to just use a website that like ArtStation or whatever, that is just a template. It always works. I mean, it's not a template. It always works. It's the same for everyone. No employer is going to hold that against you ever. They will never hold that against you. They'll always be just looking at your work and only caring about your work, unless you're a web designer. If you're a web designer, then you have to have a website. That's besides the point. And if you're a UI artist, sometimes they're kind of on the fence. Like, you can't really get away with just an ArtStation for a UI artist. Like, they have to have a website, because you want to see a UI artist, if they know how to make a website, that even though they're not going to be making websites, that's just one extra thing. Like, oh yeah, they know how to make this cool design for this website. Oh, look at these cool designs for these games they worked on. Like, so it kind of works. But yeah, if you're not a web designer, don't be a web designer. That's all I can say about it. I would try to figure out just either a template, or just go like put your stuff somewhere else, like on some sort of like place that you can display work, that you don't have to ever worry about if the website is going to work on anything. And also, everybody needs to pay attention. Always make your stuff work on mobile. Always check it on mobile. Always check it. I look at portfolios more on my phone than anything else. And when somebody has a website that doesn't work on mobile, like everything's like shoved to the side and all overlapping and weird, I'm like, I try not to dock anybody for if it doesn't work well on mobile, but at the same time, it's just that in the back of your mind, like, oh, this person, that's attention to detail. This person might not have, this person might not know the process of, they might be very new to this whole thing, like too new for this whole thing. Like, but if somebody has like this amazing looking mobile site, then you're like, oh yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Like, it's almost like you don't think about it if it's good, but you think about it if it's bad. So it's it kind of sucks, but that's kind of how it works, because they're just like kind of jotting stuff down, getting stuff out, and they're not worrying about how it looks. So you don't have to have amazing art to be a game designer. Some game designers have amazing art. Some of them are artists. Like that. That's why I was saying, like, sometimes designers need to have two jobs. They need to either be like very technically mind, I can't even speak. They need to have a very technical mind, or they need to have a very artistic mind. And it helps them design things very well. In that sense, like, it depends what company you want to go to. Also, like, a lot of people, they just won't put anything out because they don't like the way stuff looks or whatever. I commend you for just getting your work out there. Now that you've got all this work out here, and you put it up here, and you're getting feedback on it, and now you know that, because you did that, now you know that you really want to focus on design, which is what I'm not going to stop you from doing this stuff, but if that's what you really want to do, that's what I would go on and do, just because it's so hard to make it as a designer as is, that if you're not totally focused on being a designer, it's just going to be very tough. First thing you should do is get into, like I said, game engines. Download Unreal. You're using Unity, so that's great. Get Unreal. Unreal Blueprints is is a designer's friend. If you can know blueprints and you're a game designer, you'll probably get hired if you're like a really good game designer, and blueprints, because you can prototype full games if you want. I mean, you don't have to, but you can prototype things. You can get things working on your own without having to bother people. It just saves the company tons of money, and that's all they care about, unfortunately. That's it's not all they care about, but pretty much. So if you can be a designer that you see lots of value in, that knows how things work, and also if you know how things work, if you know how things are put together, you know how to design so that you're not stringing the whole production. You're not like keeping everybody on edge because you come up with this like crazy design and they have to push back on it because it's not going to work and it's going to take months of work, or you have to hire someone just for this one little thing. Like if you're saying like, oh yeah, we're going to have like this mini game and we're going to do another mini game, and like, wait a minute, we have to create whole sets of new characters for both these mini games and they're only things that you play for like a minute. No, we're not doing that. Just a designer that is mindful of what your decisions are going to do to production is very helpful. And just knowing how all of it works and is connected is very helpful. I've worked with designers that, especially the gray boxing. So yeah, what you do is you get Unreal, or you can still do Unity, gray box out some levels. Get even like the default, like, just download some projects for Unity that are like on the store and just start making levels for them, like tweaking them, changing them, making it different. Like just saying like, hey, I took this like template game that was just a download free game and I changed it into this. And I swapped out the art assets to make it a whole different theme, like, stuff like that. Like just it's gonna, like, you don't have to create the assets, but you downloaded whole new assets. You made, instead of like a sci-fi game, you made it into like a wizard game instead, and blah blah blah. So like having that kind of full circle of being able to make something real is definitely going to help you. If you just have like docs and stuff, I don't think that's going to get you hired anymore, honestly. Like just having like game design docs, I'm going to go in on this. I think they're not useless, but about 3 months into production, they become useless. They're good for the start. And then every time I've worked on a game, the game design doc just becomes totally outdated, does not have the correct information. It's just not helpful anymore. That's usually what happens. Unless you're working on I guess if you're working on, again, like Uncharted, let me just bring that up again. They're going to know, that they're going to have a good idea exactly how that game plays out. Like maybe they'll change scenes here and there. A game like that, they'll probably know just because it's not that complex. Like it's just, you're going through a level, shooting dudes up. So, that's, it's not really, and stuff is happening. So they just need to know all the stuff that's going to happen, and that's all they really care about. They don't really care about the actual design. Oh yeah. So as far as like, I mean, and also like look at famous game designers or game designers that you would look up to, and just look at the work they've done. And man, I would even try to like reach out to some of them, because sometimes they're like, hey, there's this guy, and he has a dream just like I did once upon a time. I'll help him out. Um, One of the coolest, the smartest people I've ever met was Raf Koster, and that was really cool. Like seeing how he worked. I got to see how he worked, like because he was a consultant for this company that I worked at. He was just like this short-term consultant just to kind of like help out the production, and we all sat in a room, and he just kind of asked, like we were going through the game design, like how the game, the plan of the game, the whole like what it's about, how you play it, and all that. And he was just right to the point. Like he asked all the questions, like, and there was so many holes in the game design at the time, and he basically just figured them out, like all of them out within like a few hour period. It was pretty awesome to watch. Like he just like, even though he had not seen the project before or anything, he was able to dissect it and fix it within hours. So yeah, that was really cool to see. Oh, when applying for work, yeah, Ryan asks if it's okay when you're applying for work to ask for critiques. Um, I haven't heard back from a few weeks. I'm just wondering, what's the status on my portfolio? If you decided to move on, I would really appreciate some feedback, just so I can, just so I can know what to do for next time. Like something like that. You got to word it nicely. Like, don't word it as if you already know. Like sometimes they're busy. Sometimes companies do take a while to get back to you. So if you have a hunch that they're not going to get back to you, or it's been a long time, you can do that. There has to be a certain period, like grace period, I would say, where you could probably do that. And you might not get any feedback, unfortunately. Like the best way is just to go to people like myself, or like there's just tons of people around that will give feedback. Like there are forums on Reddit. Sometimes even if a company says, like they say like, oh, we're looking for more experience, try to apply again. They just don't want to say it. A lot of times they just don't want to say that the work needs more work. Like I don't know why. I think it's the liability thing. They don't want someone to be like, oh, well, you're discriminating, blah, blah, blah. You just don't think I'm good because of this. They just don't want to have to deal with any headaches. So they just have this like canned response for everything. So that's unfortunate, because it doesn't do anybody any good. Like, so I'll apply on the website, but then I'll always go into LinkedIn or some social media or whatever, and I'll interact with that person there, or I'll send them a message, or I'll try to connect with them. And that usually helps out better. And sometimes, like, even if you connect to like the top people, like CEOs and stuff like that, they'll just like connect, because it's funny. I think CEOs have a more open, because they're entrepreneurs. They have a more open mind than production artists. Production artists are just heads down working. You try to connect with a production artist, most likely you're not going to get a connection or anything back, because they're just so busy. They're like, whatever, I'm not going to connect. But if you connect with the CEO, they're always looking for, opportunities. So they more often will connect with you, and you can be like, hey, I applied, and I'm trying to get in contact with somebody to see if I can for the whatever role you have open. Yeah, poor CEOs. I wouldn't say poor CEOs is winning. They're just sitting on their millions of dollars. But I could go into a whole rant on the game industry on that. An industry that has made billions of profits, but all the salaries have been stagnant. But we won't go into that. So it's easy for me to say. I think I come from like a little bit of a privilege there, because I've worked in the industry. Somebody can see that I have lots of experience. I'm like, okay, I'll connect with this person. So somebody that doesn't have experience, they might not do that for. But I would still try. I would try to send a nice message, something thoughtful to say. Something that makes you be very humble. But don't just ask for a job. That's the one thing. It's funny. I feel like I'm going through all the stuff I post on LinkedIn within this one live stream. Um, yeah, don't just ask for a job. That's the one thing you don't want to do. When you message someone at first, um, don't be like vague or whatever. Just be like, hey, I'll do anything. And desperation is a job killer. Even if I know everybody is desperate looking for a job, but you just can't show it. Which is unfortunate. But so like you can ask for a job, but it has to be. I wouldn't ask like directly. So what you do is you ask for like to get in contact with somebody that is dealing with this job. You don't just say like, give me a job. Um, and there's a very fine line because I've gotten it many times where like somebody will just immediately give me their sales pitch, and it always turns me off. Just the sales pitch. I've had to learn myself like how like to do it kind of correctly. And it also depends on the person. Like sometimes, like I said, on CEOs are very business minded sometimes, so they won't care as much maybe if you just like ask for a job, like get to the point. But some people do. It is a game of cat and mouse, and it just gets harder. It definitely. I do feel for people trying to break in to the game industry now, in film industry. It is harder. It definitely is harder than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago it was really hard. It's harder than that, so that really like is kind of crazy to me. And that's not because the jobs are going away, but they're going overseas because there's literally like so Blizzard owns an outsourcing studio. Like they own outsourcing. Like they don't even go to another studio. They just have their own outsourcing somewhere else. So they have a very small team in the United States. All AAA is doing this now. They're culling down their teams in the United States, and they're just having the brute force brunt work done overseas because it's like a fourth of the cost or less, like just like crazy amount less. So that means there's less jobs, which is unfortunate. Yeah, Tuan makes a good point there. When you connect with somebody, sometimes it'll work to just be business oriented, but sometimes people need you to kind of know who they are at least. Not have a copy and paste response. Like say something about their job. Like just look on their profile, look at the jobs they've been at. If they've been at like say like I did this the other day. Somebody worked at Pixar in like the 90s, and I was like, holy crap! Like and I sent them a message about like I love this film, and like you just love this game, love this film, love this whatever, or like whatever you worked on. That's great. That's awesome. Instead of going right for the job. And sometimes like you need to have some forethought. Like sometimes you need to connect with people beforehand, send them a message, get connected, and then maybe like months later, or weeks, probably not weeks, but months later down the line, when you're ready to actually get the job, or you like where your portfolio is at, then you can connect with them again, because then you have already connected with that person once. So yeah, there's that. The whole thing is kind of ludicrous. I know it's kind of sucks that everybody has to do this. 1 year in the U.S. and another year outside the States. No, Ubisoft. Yeah, Ubisoft has a ton of outsourcing. They make a ton of games, so they make the big bucks. They need to outsource. That reminded me of when it's funny. I'm connected with a lot of people from Ubisoft just randomly. Like people from Ubisoft are very willing to connect. So I would try to connect with some of them. I don't know how I feel about it. So internship, like when I started, I just got a job out of the gate. Not out of the gate. Sorry, it took me like almost a year to get a job. But like now, I was very against internships for a while, but I feel like the current landscape. So Austin, I would definitely try to look into getting an intern after you get some skills together and you're able to show some levels and stuff like that. Bring it back to Austin. After you're able to show some skills and like stuff like that, I would definitely try to get into an internship program. And it sucks because like it's funny. I don't even know how I could be doing what I'm doing today right now because I have 3 kids. Everything is just crazy all the time. They're all young, and the way this industry works, it requires you to move everywhere. It does not pay you. They're paying less and less up front, and everything is costing more and more. And it's really unfortunate. Like I don't know. I don't think I could be an animator if I tried to do it today with kids, because you just have to like you always have to stay late and do all this stuff that you have to put in your dues essentially. And you have to be willing. That's one that you have to be willing to move anywhere. To get your start, because I've seen people that out of the beginning they don't want to move, and it's just so tough. It's so tough to do that. You have to move. You almost have to move always, unless you already live in like LA, which is kind of dumb because that's really expensive. So I was always very, very terrible at networking. I never like. It's funny. Like when I was in school, I focused on the work. I was just so worried about everything. Like I never went out with people on the weekends. I just focused on the work, got the work done, work. I didn't really like put in the time to build relationships, even though I'm still connected with everybody after school. Like we all were pretty tight, tight knit still. And I feel like that definitely hurt me a little bit. So I'd say as far as like, yeah, 50-50 is pretty good. You have to get to a certain level no matter what first. Your work has to get to a certain level to get your foot in the door. No matter who you're connected with or who you know, if that work isn't there, you're just not going to get the job. People aren't just going to hire you for being a friend, though. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it happens. But the bar is so high that like it's better to just get your work good first and then worry about networking. But in these days, like I'm kind of showing my age. Like social media, when I was starting, was like just something you f around on. Like it wasn't even like a thing. It wasn't a tool that you use. Like it wasn't a thing. Like LinkedIn was like fairly new. It was just like MySpace was still bigger than Facebook at the time. Like just like stuff like that. Like it's different now. Like networking isn't always like meeting someone in person now. It's your whole online persona and how you look to the outside world, like online, which is cool because you can connect with people without having to leave your house, which is great. But it's cool because you can get a wider network of people without having to like go everywhere, like travel across the country. Not everyone can afford that. I've never been able to really afford to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, MySpace. Yeah, it was funny. It was bigger than Facebook when I graduated. It was funny. But then like the next year, Facebook was bigger, so it didn't even matter. Like Facebook was like done with it, or MySpace like crashed so hard. It was like a 2-year drop off, and then it was like basically gone. I think it's still around. Let's look. MySpace. Connect with people. Oh, awesome. The music. Well, it's always been a music thing. So it looks like they went more onto the music again. And that guy, Tom, that guy that made this, he cashed out, man. I think he's traveling the world as a photographer now. Fucking asshole. I wish I could do that. I think that hiring in games is often very broken, especially now. Like people rely on these stupid little things to try to like weed people out. Like you need 4 years experience and a ship's title out of school. Like stupid stuff. Like they just put that stuff there to scare people away. It's not even like real. Like I can tell you, it's not real. I literally somebody in charge of hiring said that to me. So it's not real. The experience thing is all BS. Though I mean, it's as soon as you get beyond the junior, like they do want experience, but if you're beyond junior, you have experience. So it doesn't like the whole experience thing is kind of stupid. And yeah, so like I feel like a lot of companies try to put all these systems, like the art test, the whole good old art test. They'll look at your portfolio, they'll like it, and then they'll give you an art test. Like, okay, you like my stuff. Why am I doing this? Because they have this inability to see talent and see how someone fits in, or not inability. It's almost just like a lack of time. Everyone has a lack of time, and everyone's just like so busy they can't comb through all the dozens of portfolios and demos and all that stuff. And so somebody that's doing that doesn't know what they're doing really. The person that is looking for all that stuff doesn't really know what they're doing, so they have to have like all these criteria so they can weed out people. So it's just kind of broken. The whole thing's broken. And so I think when I saw Tuan's work, I saw when I first saw his first demo reel, I passed over him. I was like, he's all right. Could use some work. And then all of a sudden, I saw he had posted, or not posted, he updated his reel with something he had done from a company at the time. But the cloth animation looked great, like the way the character was moving with it. And I said, oh, like that timing, that weight, that the posing, everything looked a lot better than what I saw on the other part of the reel. So I decided to I gave him an art test. I did the stupid game industry thing, just because he only had that one piece that I liked, and everything else I didn't like. So I was like, all right, we got to give him an art test. And I had never given an art test before. I'm pretty sure the constraints I gave on the art test were pretty unreasonable, but he went through it and he did it. And yeah, there was a lot of rough animation just because I was asking for a lot of animation in a little amount of time, which now I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do that to someone now if I was going to give someone an art test. But he did it, and he showed that he could make. What happened was he made. This is actually a very good point. He made me laugh. The animation actually wasn't amazing. It was okay. It was for the time he was given. But the thought process and the creativity in it involved made me laugh. And this actually happened to me. Oh, my hair looks terrible. This actually happened to me when I was going through school. One of my animations on my demo, I'll just bring up my school demo reel. Let's just go all in. Here's my demo reel when I came out of school in 2008. I can't believe I spent time on animating that beginning scene. So this is my acting. I liked this scene so much. I put it up front. So this is the scene that everyone liked. I didn't at the time. Why is the frame rate's kind of chugging? I don't know why. So everyone liked that scene. I didn't for some reason. I can see it now, but there was just something about the physics and the timing and everything there. I could see too many things wrong with it, but all people cared about was the story, which is what Pixar does. Like their story is the big thing for them. So that's what sometimes you can just have a good idea, and people overlook some imperfections. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're making stuff. Just having clever ideas instead of just making someone sit in a chair. Make something interesting happen when they're sitting into the chair. Like how would this character sit in a chair? Would this character run up to the chair and jump into it? Would this character be kind of clumsy and fall out of it? Would this character be really fat and have the chair break? Just thinking about interesting ways to do things is always a plus. I always try to make people laugh. It's always the best. Oh, it just went into my next demo. Let's just go into all my demo reels. This was when I was working at Zynga. Or no, this is before Zynga, isn't it? This is a game I worked on called Super Dance on Facebook. So to grow as a designer, so you want to basically get your head in the mindset of a designer. First and foremost, play games. I don't know what your financial situation is or anything, but try to find time to play games on mobile or wherever you decide. Actually, no, yeah, play all games. Don't limit yourself to certain games. Play mobile games, see how the systems work and everything, dissect them. And you're obviously a gamer, so that's not too far fetched. Is just play games, but be thinking about how they're put together. Really think how they're put together. Why is this game fun? Why is this fun? What's going on? How's the flow of the game? As far as growing, yeah. So first off, you have to get yourself in the mindset. You have to say who you are. I'm a designer. So you have your identity. You know what you're looking for. And then you have to You're playing games. You're just like always looking for how they're not even playing them just to have fun. You're just playing like look at all the games that are popular, all the top grossing games, all the top grossing mobile, top grossing anything, top sales, anything that's really popular, and dissect it. Why is it popular? Why is this? Even if you don't like it, like I've done that in the past. Like even if you don't like it, you still have to see why it's popular for a reason. Everything is popular for a reason. I know it's funny how people are like, oh yeah, this person is famous because of this stupid thing. They're not really that good. Everything is popular for a reason. There is a reason behind it. There's a reason why Kim Kardashian is popular, and there's something about what she does and how she has promoted herself and put herself in the situation. I mean, well, she was rich to start, so maybe that's not a good example, but lots of people are rich and they're not as famous. So like that's the thing. Like there's still something about it. There's still something about everything that makes it popular. So that's what you want to do. Like, even if you hate Mario, all right, well, Mario's like one of the most recognized game characters of all time, and their games are always top selling. So you have to see like why do people like this, and it has to do with more with it's not because all the people there's a lot of gamers that have not played the old original Mario games, and they still like it. It still sells, and there's a reason. So you just got to find that reason and really tune into that. And then, like I said, the game engines. That's a big one. Just opening up. So I know you have used Unity as a designer. I mean, Unreal is really a designer's best friend, just because of the visual scripting. You can like change the way the game works a lot easier than you would be able to in Unity, and be able to what I say, gray box out some stuff and change stuff around. It come up with cool ideas for things and just start experimenting. QA tester. Yeah, QA tester is a good way to get your foot in the door. A lot of people, as far as QA testers, a lot of times what happens is people will become QA testers and they never get out of it. Some people do go on to do other like big things after QA testing. It is a good way to get in. It still is. I think it'll always be a good way to get in because people always need bodies testing. They just always need them. I see companies doing it all the time at launch. They're just and they don't pay well. That's the unfortunate part of it. If you're financially strapped, it's better than working at McDonald's. Probably the same pay, but yeah, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Yeah, QA testing is good to get in the door. The thing with QA testing, there are good QA testers and bad QA testers. A good QA tester can communicate very well. So I work on, if you really want to be a QA tester, you have to work on communicating what happened. So when you find a bug, what you're going to say first, you're going to say like, oh, this character's arm was like clipping through something, or this character is messing up, or this system isn't working right. And what the programmer or artist is going to tell you is going to say, well, okay, so how did that happen? Like, what are the steps to get that to happen? And if you go, I don't know, then you have to go back and try to get it to happen again, and then say like, oh, the step, even if it seems like it's easy, an artist and programmer, they're not going to be playing the game that much, which is unfortunate that's how it works. Like that's usually how it works. A lot of people working on the game aren't really playing it that much because they're just working on the game. They're just be like, okay, well, how do you get this? And then you're going to say all the steps. You got to put out, say you go to this screen and this happens, if I try to tap on this button while I'm trying to do something over here at the same time, like you got to like really, really communicate what's happening. So that's the biggest thing, because it's a lot more than just playing the game, and you can't just play and find the bugs. You have to be able to communicate them. I guess that's the big thing. But don't be scared about it. It's not like they're asking you to be like a English major or anything. But yeah, it's just think about that. Yeah, QA can be a trap. It can be a trap. But you can say that for any job, really. Like any job could become a trap. But yeah, QA often works a lot. So that's, yeah, I feel like QA works harder than the actual production team a lot of times, which is unfortunate. But it's always nice when you have good QA. It does help. It is. I don't like it when people look down. Like when like there'll be someone on the team that like looks down on QA. I haven't really been in that situation too much, but I've heard it before and seen it before in other situations. So it's always, I feel like QA is very helpful for making a game. It's funny, and people always blame QA when this is my favorite thing. When a game launches, somebody goes, the first thing someone says is like, "Didn't the QA find this bug?" And they did. They definitely found it. They probably found many more that are waiting to be seen. The problem is there just wasn't any time to fix it. So that's usually what happens. Oh, sorry. Let me go on to another. Yeah, QA is easy to get into in general. I don't. It might be hard to stay in, but I'm not sure because you can always like catch a company at a bad time where they really need QA and get a job probably. But you just have to be waiting for that. I almost planned to go on. I almost went into QA as well. That was my plan B. Was QA. Actually, it was my plan A at one time. At one point, um, I wanted to be a tester for a while. So my path was I wanted to be a game designer. Then I wanted to be a game journalist because I loved playing and reviewing games. I was writing a lot. I was reviewing a lot. I did like hundreds of reviews on games. Um, and then somewhere along the line, I kind of lost interest. I had some stuff going on in my life that wasn't too great, and I kind of lost focus on just games altogether. And then when halfway through school, I realized, like through high school, I realized that things weren't going to turn around if I didn't do something about it. I needed to start getting things to get me doing good in school and thinking about my future. And that's when game design came back for me. And then I wanted to be a level designer. And then I got to school, and then I pretty much went into animation. And then I never looked back. I got into college and I did animation. Um, oh, I think one of my kids just woke up. So that's my cue to leave. Um, Thank you all. This has been an awesome stream. I will be doing this more and more as time goes on. Where is this? So, I think this went pretty well. We went over a lot of stuff. But yeah, if you want for my next stream, if you want to get anything critiqued, sign up for my Patreon. Any of the tiers that do that. If you just want a written critique, just throw $1 my way and I'll send that out. And that's it. And I got to get to my crying children. All right, see you guys.